Hello everyone, this is Professor Cole yet again, and today we're going to briefly discuss academic conclusions, which I know give quite a few students great difficulty. Hopefully I can offer you a few suggestions or new approaches to these last paragraphs in your essays that go beyond the usual advice, so you can finish your papers in a much more effective manner. So as always, I like to talk about the purposes of this particular writing structure before we get into the techniques to help you. So why is a conclusion necessary? Well, simply put, a conclusion is necessary because human beings need closure, and your readers expect you to provide that in your writing. So imagine yourself sitting in a movie theater. For the last hour, you've had a great time watching the summer's latest blockbuster. The characters, the storyline, the action scenes. You're fully engaged in the film and can't wait to see how it ends. And then imagine that the screen suddenly goes black right before the climax, right as the good guy and the bad guy are finally confronting one another. And the credits start to roll. How would you feel? Would you be angry, disappointed? I know I would be. Let's say you went and talked to the theater manager, and he or she just responded to your complaints by saying, you know what, you had an hour of the film, you had an hour and a half, you should be happy with that. Would you be okay with that? Probably not. Like your readers, you and the rest of that movie audience want closure. It doesn't matter how great the movie was, the audience will remember and likely resent that bad ending, pardon me. The same is true of your essay. If you provide a weak conclusion or you provide no conclusion at all, your audience is going to remember that. That's their final impression of your essay, and that's definitely not the impression you want to leave them with. So why do students have so much difficulty with this final paragraph in an essay? I have a couple theories. The primary reason, I think, is because most students simply burn out by the time they get to the conclusion. And it's usually because they've tried to write the whole thing all at once. Spending several hours in front of the computer. Maybe the essay is due the next day. We all procrastinate, right? And so they just try to do too much all at once. So this usually leaves the final paragraphs being really short or vague, or sometimes students don't include them at all. So what's my advice to counter this? Well, first and foremost, try to avoid writing your essay all in one sitting. Think about it. If you work 20 hours a week, do you complete all those hours back to back? Do you spend 40 hours working straight? I doubt it. Why then try to finish something as complicated and difficult as an essay all at once? If you have time, give yourself a daily word count or page count instead. Say, write a half page or a full page per day. And if you're pressed for time, if you don't have that much time, at least try to give yourself a full day's rest before tackling that conclusion. You can come to it fresh, maybe after reading your essay through one more time, and can really focus and concentrate on it and give it the attention it deserves. So let's say you've given yourself enough time, you're not suffering from burnout. What's the usual advice to complete the conclusion? Well, oftentimes students are told to just restate their main points in that conclusion. The old tell them what you're going to say, tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And so usually students do that. What they'll do is just restate or just rehash verbatim what they've already said in the essay. And that's not good. It's repetitive, it's gimmicky, and it's sort of amateurish, and those are not impressions you want readers to take away. So instead, why not just revisit one or two of those main points? Again, not restate, but revisit, and then try to emphasize the topic's importance in the big picture. And that's where the vast majority of your conclusion is going to come from, is that emphasis of the big picture. Why does the issue matter in society or humanity itself? Why does it matter outside the classroom? Remember, oftentimes when teachers assign you topics, they're doing so because they want you to explore the world, explore the universe a little bit beyond your own small subjective experience. And so we need to show those instructors that we understand that bigger importance and how it works in society and humanity. So let's just look at a side-by-side comparison of two possible conclusions. The paragraph on the left follows the standard advice of just restating one's main points and claims in the final paragraph. The paragraph to the right, however, emphasizes the bigger picture, and I think you'll see how the differences in these two paragraphs really stand out, and how they would stand out to readers. One sounds much more sophisticated and interesting than the other. So let's look at the standard advice paragraph first. We have looked at the many challenges facing those who educate deaf and hard of hearing students. First, we examined how deaf and hard of hearing children are often discriminated against in classrooms. We then discussed how many teachers struggle adapting to the special needs of such students. Finally, we looked at ways to overcome these issues. So again, it's just kind of a step-by-step rehashing of what we've already likely said in the essay. On the right, we're going to again focus on that bigger picture. While some may contend that today's educational system faces far greater challenges than those associated with deaf and hard of hearing children, the treatment and instruction of these special needs students is a fundamental part of America's promise to its citizens. If this nation is to remain true to its creed, if it is to endure as a bastion of liberty and equality in the world, then it must recognize and cultivate its deaf and hard of hearing youth. Any failure to do so will stand as proof that the American dream, the vision of so many millions, is dead. You know, somebody could accuse it of being a little melodramatic, but I think students often err by being too cautious rather than trying to build that drama in an essay. And this does exactly that. It doesn't rehash the main points. Somebody's already been through the essay. They know what those main points are. Rather, it helps emphasize why this matters on the larger scale in that bigger picture. Now, the closing statement or sentence is often very, very difficult, even for skilled writers. And that's because it needs to sound like a closing. Sometimes reading the text aloud can help a writer listen for this quality. After all, our ears are much more practiced at listening for these types of characteristics than our eyes are at seeing them. A writer can also finish an essay by predicting what may happen if the issue is ignored or if it's improved. Maybe it's a good prediction, maybe it's a bad prediction. Quotes can also be effective for a closing, though some readers and instructors may prefer to see your own writing at the very end of an essay. That may be something you want to discuss with your teacher. So that's about all I have for you when it comes to conclusions. I hope this proved helpful. As always, if you want to go a little bit beyond this, my book, Better Writing Beyond Periods and Commas, is available from Amazon.com and through most major bookstores. I'll place a link down in the description. But again, thanks for listening, and feel free to peruse my other videos as they appear on the channel. Thanks.